Well, I think that the starting point is consideration. We need to start actually thinking about it. We need to think, what are the risks, where is the exposure, where can our reputation be compromised because firstly somebody tweets something from one of the official accounts which is compromising, but probably much more likely is where an employee says something that they shouldn't, and that brings the company into disrepute. So I'd say as a starting point, it's important that all companies have some kind of social media policy. It may be as simple as saying your code of conduct which applies to you at work applies to your conduct online. Don't think that anything you say online is private, because as soon as you put something into cyberspace, and if that information either brings the company into disrepute or you breach the duty of good faith that you owe the company that you work for, then you can be disciplined up to dismissal. We often see these disclaimers, I tweet in my personal capacity, views don't represent the views of my employer. That can be difficult because as soon as you can be associated with the company that you work for, then the potential exists for you to bring them into disrepute, which sounds complicated, but basically it doesn't matter if I disclaim everything in my Twitter bio or in my on my Facebook page. If I say something which compromises the company and I can be identified as an employee of the company, then the potential exists for me to bring the company into disrepute. So I think that the decision needs to be made up front at the beginning of a relationship about whether or not a particular account belongs to the employee or belongs to the company. And I think that we're starting to see more and more litigation about this, where courts have actually tried to assign a value to how much a follower is worth. So then a company, an ex-employee took over an account and they sued him for a certain amount, and they put a value on each follower. So I think it was $2 per follower, and they times that by however many followers he had. If you do intend for an account to be a company account, to remain the property of the company, then you need to make provision for it up front. The person who's in control of that account needs to know from the beginning that that's not a personal account. It is difficult though, because the common law in South Africa is that the company that you work for owns the intellectual property for all the content that you produce in the course and scope of your employment. You know, you're being paid by the company, so anything that you create during that employment is owned by the company. That's a very standard term of contracts, but also even if it's not in the contract, it's what the default law is in South Africa. So it's difficult where people have these accounts which are partly professional, partly personal. If somebody's expending an extraordinary amount of time at work building up a following during work hours, and then they leave the company, then the company may say, well, that account belongs to us, we own the IP in that account. It's a controversial issue, it's new territory, it's an issue that a lot of people don't think about, but certainly if the company wants to own that account, they must make it clear up front.